Invisible Friends is one of the most hyped NFT projects. Now, wait, what's going on? Sorry about that. Let's jump in and check out the pre-reveal price prediction. Anyway, let's get rid of this. Okay, so Invisible Friends is dropping on the 23rd. Now, when it comes down to Twitter, they've got sort of almost 500,000 followers on Twitter, and when it comes down to Random Character Collective, which is what they're a part of, they've got almost 300 members in their Discord. Now, when it comes down to Invisible Friends itself, I'm not going to kind of do an overview on this project. I'm just going to get straight into my price prediction, the stats where I think it can run. If you want to check out a great overview of the project, Angel or NFTverse has done a great video. Linked him up there. Go check it out after you've watched this video, of course. So where I want to touch on is where we're actually going to derive the data and the figures from. So with Invisible Friends as a part of a Random Characters Collective, they've recently had two drops. They've had Mood Rollers and they've had Slim Hoods. Now, the reason that I'm referencing these is that to get onto the whitelist for Invisible Friends, you could have instantly gotten it if you had 4 points, and you had a point if you owned a sort of a Slim Hood or a Mood Roller. So essentially having 4 Slim Hoods or 4 Mood Rollers or a combination of both would give you instant access. So this is good because it gives us an indication of what the market would have priced in the value of what an invisible friend would be going off those sales. So that kind of helps out. So that is why we're touching on Slim Hoods and Mood Rollers. So one thing that I want to touch on is with the fact that you needed to get 4 of them. So when we head on over to Icy Tools, we can get an indication of where this was running pre-snapshot. So what this meant, it meant that people could accumulate Mood Rollers or Slim Hoods, and then after the snapshot, there would have been an obvious dump because people would have gotten their whitelist spot and then they would have offloaded. But if we head over on to Icy Tools, what we can see here is that the snapshot was around here, around the 15th of Feb, and you can see the instant drop off. There was a support at around the sort of 0.5 ETH mark, but beforehand it was capping out at around 3 ETH. So if we kind of run this out, that's 12 ETH. If we have a look at Slim Hoods, the same kind of deal. It kind of capped out at around that 3 ETH mark. So, and then with sort of Slim Hoods, it kind of bounced down around that sort of 0.55 mark, and now it's currently sitting at around that 0.75 mark. So with this in mind, we've got the market pricing Invisible Friends are going no more than that 12 ETH mark if you take one of these and multiply it by 4. Now, I'm not saying that is going to hit the 12 ETH mark because the fact that someone can hold 4 and the fact that the market has also priced in the sale of them on the secondary market after the crash at around that sort of 0.5 ETH mark means that there is about a 2 ETH difference. So it means that the collective sale of holding 4 of them plus an Invisible Friends would have been at around that 12 ETH mark, nothing more than that. So if we take 2 ETH off the 12, we kind of get around that 10 ETH mark. So this means that my first target is around that 10 ETH mark. It's not saying it can't go over, or it's not saying that it won't be under. This is just that first price target when we take in what the community is currently pricing in at Invisible Friends when you take into account Mood Rollers and Slim Hoods. Now, another project that has had a run up recently with a lot of hype is Hapebeast. Now, I know that Hapebeast and Invisible Friends are two completely separate projects, but we can get a lot of similarities when it comes down to the hype and what can happen post-mint and pre-reveal. Now, with this chart, we can see that it kind of jumped in, boosted up, dropped back down, found this support, and then it kind of steadily ran up. Now, the reason that I bring up this chart is we will be referencing this trend later on in the video, but the reason that I want to point this out is it felt like we had a ceiling at around this 8 ETH mark. It just couldn't get through this 8 ETH mark. Now, what I will kind of bring up here is the fact that Hapebeast had 8,000. Invisible Friends has a supply of 5,000. Now, Invisible Friends has a mint price of 0.25. So when we take into account Hapebeast price of 0.2, and it kind of kept maxing out at around that 40x. If we also take the price of 0.25 and multiply that by 40, we get a 10 ETH mark, which starts to kind of price in the fact that the market thinks that there is a 40x in this pre-reveal. Now, what you will notice on Hapebeast is it did have a few little punches through up to the 9 and the 10 ETH mark. Now, what I also want to throw into account is the fact that Hapebeast had a supply of 8,000 and Invisible Friends has a supply of 5,000. Now, when it comes down to the difference between Hatebeast's supply and Invisible Friends supply, there is a 62% difference. Now, I'm not saying the price needs to increase by another 62%, but it means that we've got another run up and another potential to stretch out. So it means that at this 10 ETH mark, if we then were to extend it another 62%, we're then going to get to a 16 ETH mark. So this coming in means that I don't think we'll see a top anything above a 15 ETH pre-reveal. Now, this does sound crazy, this does sound insane, but I'm just throwing around some numbers and some maths and statistics to back up these thoughts and these kind of estimates. Now, when it comes down to the lower range of Invisible Friends, I don't think we will see anything below a 5. The reason I think this is that with the average of sort of 4 Slim Hoods or Mood Rollers, we're kind of getting to around a 2.5 ETH mark. This means that if we take that 2.5 ETH, that's what the base sort of cost would be for an Invisible Friends currently right now post snapshot. It means that you should then throw another 2.5 ETH on top, because that's what the Invisible Friends is worth, which means that you should get to around that 5 ETH mark. So yes, I do understand how absurd having a price range between 5 and 15 ETH is, but I wanted to break down what the mathematics say the top price should be and what I believe the bottom price should be, so we can find this equilibrium to then see where we can actually expect a more reasonable price when it comes down to the reveal. Now, when it comes down to the mint, I do believe we will kind of come in around this 7.5 to 8 ETH mark. I think we will run up, touch out at a 10 really quick, then it will drop back down. I think it will come down around the 5, it will then bounce around up. I think we will kind of sit at around this 7 or this 8 ETH mark, but we won't sit there for long. This will come down to a fact of people kind of hitting a resistance. What we'll see is we'll see a resistance hit a couple of times. People that do want to exit the project will kind of layer out, which will then mean that all of the paper hands have gone and it will then continue to run up. What I then see happening is I see it running up, hitting a resistance around this 10 mark. I think we will peak out, see an 11, maybe an 11.5, and then it'll come down for the reveal. The reason that I do believe we will have a position where it will be a downtrend in this last sort of few days is that lots of people understand that the highest price will be pre-reveal. So everyone will try to sell a day before and then a day before. So I actually think the highest price we will see will actually be sort of 2 or 3 days before the reveal. The reason being is people want to exit the project with as much profit as possible. And once people start to see the prices sort of declining, they're going to want to exit the project, which then has this layering effect when it comes down to the project. So where my price predictions currently are is, if we have a look, we're going to hit a sort of maybe a 9.5 right after when it runs up. People will realize that they can make a large profit. Then we will see the price kind of drop. I think we will hit a 5, maybe a 5.2. After we've hit this 5.2 mark, we will then have a steady climb up, have a resistance at 8 ETH. It'll then kind of run up. Once the paper hands have gone, we will hit a resistance at 10. I do think we will have a run up and a kind of a blow off at around sort of 11.3, and then it will kind of come back down, and I do believe it'll then sort of be revealing at around the sort of I'm going to say a 7.5 to 8 ETH mark. Now, the reason I'm saying that is when we looked at something like Hatebeast, it had this big run up and then it kind of tumbled down towards the end when it got to the reveal. Now, I do think that we need to see this play out. You can't have this kind of prediction in this chart and be 100% accurate to the minute, because we can have market sort of changes when it comes down to Ethereum. We can have market changes when it comes down to Team. We can have a real bad minting error. There are lots of things at play that can come into it. And this is just a bit of fun and a bit of where I can kind of see it running. Now, the reason that we have a chart that looks like this is, if you've seen charts before, this is how they run. They run up in a similar pattern to this. And the dynamic, we have seen this kind of play out with essentially a 100% whitelist chart. So I will say that this is 100% fun. This is like sort of throwing money on a fun named horse with your mates at the sort of pub. This isn't financial advice. You should do your own research. If you are in this project, you need to kind of ensure that you seek out all the information. And if there is life-changing money on the table, something that can genuinely change your life, I do believe it is worth considering taking those profits, because you're not sure what's going to happen when it comes down to post-reveal sort of price structure and the drop that usually happens afterwards. When it comes down to the numbers post-reveal, we won't know that until we actually see what we actually get to reveal a little bit closer, because it's too hard to kind of play this out over time. So I hope you found this a little bit of fun and a little bit of insight into where I think the price prediction can go and the numbers can go before the reveal for Invisible Friends. If you found value in this video, please consider hitting up that subscribe button, and while you're down there, also hit up the like button. As always, it's been a pleasure having you with me. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.